I'm more need to know more about really just to kind of reach the target market when you can't access social media. I don't want to fully rely on that all the time.
Super, thank you. Welcome. All right, over to you, Pascal. If others join in, we'll
of course, yes,
welcome in, but we'll make a start.
Thank you very much. And apologies, really, I disappeared and came back. I'm not taking it personally, but that's the first time that Zoom kicks me out like this. I've been used and been a loyal follower and user for many years. So thank you again for your support today and spending some time on a morning of reflection, whereby we're going to be clarifying what is important when it comes to promoting your business, your offering, your team via the internet, and also as part of the brief set by Lindsay and her colleagues, the kind of online solutions and apps that can make life much, much easier. So as you'd expect, I prepared some visuals, which also to keep me on time. And Lindsay, can I appoint you as the timekeeper for today? And
yeah.
if you could let me know that as we are approaching 11 o'clock, we'll go for a comfort break. That should see us through the first half of today, and then we'll move on to, when we come back, to the apps and so on. As Lindsay mentioned, please ask lots of questions. This is your session. Feel free to put them in the chat, and Lindsay will let me know when they are, or as and when I have kind of regular breaks through the modules, feel free to switch on your microphone and ask me some questions. So let's begin with, what you can see on screen, this welcome slide put together by Hannah and her colleagues. And excuse me, what you can see there is this wonderful bit of photography of somebody with this amazing plan that they put together. And you can see there's lovely colors as well. There's some charts and there's all sort of things going on. But that's the end bit. This is when somebody has gone through the reflection, through the research, through the discussion with their colleagues. This is the end bit. And for me, when you start to plan your campaign for next year, when you start to introduce new activities and skills, I would say that it may look a little more like this kind of commitment to a leap of faith into the unknown, with people like myself, Lindsay and Hannah saying to you, don't worry, you will land safely. Don't worry, you can fly and reach the other side of that street. And more importantly, when I explain to you how to use online, perhaps a bit differently, it will feel very much like you're doing something that you've not seen before. Indeed, if you are looking for examples around in your sector, you might not find any of your peers or competitors practicing what I'm about to recommend to you. Now, there's a reason for that. And the reason being that we have learned over the last, if you think about it, 30 years now. In August of this year, we celebrated the 30 years of the World Wide Web. And for the last 20, as businesses, we've been doing things in a very kind of experimental way. We've been trying things, we've been learning, we've been disappointed, delighted. But one thing that's happened, which I know you've all been very aware of, is the global pandemic. And the global pandemic has accelerated the need to make use of our time in a very smart way to get results. We had to really concentrate on getting results. So welcome to everybody. And just to be clear about the intention of today's session, it is very much to help each other reflect and plan our activities moving forward. And my recommendation, therefore, would be that, yes, by all means, take on board the information from today, but continue to work on it, continue to keep in touch with the team at the Digital City, by extension myself, and get some feedback on your own plans and reflection. So today, really, we're starting a longer term project. For me, what is important is to make sure that we are clear about what we want to achieve. So in the first half of today, I will show you the element of your sales and marketing funnel. How do you get discovered by new customers in such a way that they want to work with you? And we know a lot more now than we did 5, 10, 20 years ago. And then once we've done that, what are the online applications? What are the tools that can make life a little easier as a content creator? Because you all know this, ultimately, no matter your approach to online marketing, content will be the fuel to that engine. We will close at the end with a Q&A, but as I've explained a moment ago, please ask questions as they come to you. And if you feel happier, put them in the chat for me. Okay. Now, I've said to you that today is the beginning of a journey and a process. So beyond today, what I can offer you is a link to online resources. So the slides you're going to see today, some of the resources, everything else that I've mentioned, plus a few extras, I will put those into an online folder. And Lindsay and Hannah will send you a link to those online resources so you can refer to it. But also, because I think it's important, you will all receive an invitation to what I called a recap session or a mastermind session. So at some stage, and we think it might be early next year, so we can just start the year with a bit of a bang, we will invite you for a recap session where you can actually tell us a bit more about your planning, your reflection, what you've been up to, and get some feedback from myself and Lindsay as well. So I think it's important that we have that element of support for you. All right. Who's ready then to begin with this workshop? Can I just have the thumbs up from at least one person? Thank you very much, appreciated. So thank you very much, Chris. We are going to begin very, very quickly with this funnel. And my thinking and what I did today for all of you has been influenced obviously by the events that we are still going through. And what it has meant for people like Lindsay and I is when we, I would say in 2019, had the impression that we had time to explain things to you. We had time to invite you to transform your activities. We had more time to ask you to embed new practices. The global pandemic has just made this so much faster. And the speed in which we've had to adopt new practices and sometimes even approach new sectors has been quite significant. There was a conference hosted by Microsoft that was suggesting that in the space of 1 year, 2020, some industries did 4 years of digital transformation, which is quite staggering, but also a worry for those who didn't do anything that year. So that means that they are now 4 years behind some of their peers. And what that meant for Lindsay and I was that the tendencies, things that we were predicting that you would eventually come around to be using became a reality. They were in the present, no longer in the future. And one of those realities for all of you in this virtual room is that we've moved on from completing digital tasks to creating a digital experience for our customers, because ultimately they were spending even greater hours and time on the internet. This is also very important to me because it is my role as a mentor, trainer, and speaker to motivate people to do different things and better things online. And what I do know is that if all you have on your to-do list are a bunch of tasks to do with social media and SEO, email marketing, website, and all those kind of strangely connected elements, it just becomes a chore. It just becomes something you want to get rid of. When we create and become the architect of an online experience, it does us a lot of good as the business owner managers, but also, of course, has a positive impact on our customers. So ultimately, whilst we are talking today about this business of promoting your offer to the market, you are really already ahead of the game by thinking of an online experience that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we will see what that looks like in a minute. So very, very quickly, we won't be doing this on our own. We have to obviously be using the tools of the time. And those brands, and these are only there to represent, the wider ecosystem of internet marketing, they've also made some changes and for the better. What I will say as a little hint to what we're going to discuss today, the changes that they've all made in social media, in search engine marketing and beyond, actually are more around customer service than sales and marketing. And I think that's a very, very strong hint for all of us in terms of this idea of the experience. So actually what we can do is already do a form of marketing that is also supporting our existing customer, and is also supporting the business in this idea of taking care of an audience before, during, and after. And I think for me, that's kind of interesting, where we're all familiar with the expression after sales scare. I suspect no matter your industry, after sales scare, but there is now this concept of before sales scare, which is the manner in which we communicate via the internet is an indication of our approach to customer service, to our kind of common sense, but also to how we use communication skills. And just as a word of caution, and of course, it's at the heart of my conversation today, digital marketing is not about automating everything. Let's be very clear about this. And people have tried with some varying success. Digital marketing is about really showcasing your qualities as people and encouraging an audience that is also made of individuals and human beings to want to do business with you. And automation doesn't do that to the degree that what we're going to discuss. So it's just kind of fascinating to look at this as well, that the platforms themselves have changed a lot in the last 2 years. All right, so this is at the heart of what we do today. Almost like this artist you can see there on the slide, I will show you the tools of the time, I will show you the techniques, but the result will be as unique as and individual as you are as businesses, and as unique as you are in terms of business operators. So it is our role with Lindsay, Anna, and the team to make you think differently, hopefully, about this business of promoting yourselves online, so you can take different actions. And those actions, ideally, will not suffer the impact of time. So it is my role really to make sure that what I teach you today will work next year, the year after, and the year after that. There's nothing more frustrating, I'm sure you'll agree, to have to relearn something every single time because there's a slight tweak in things, So that's what we're going to be doing here. So time is against me, so I need to go straight into module number 1, which is this sales funnel. And approaches again, I don't have the time to give you the history, but you can trust that after 30 years of doing what we do, and 20 years in my case of helping small businesses, we've learned a few things or two about where it matters, where is the focus. So you may have come across this term sales funnel, you may favor the customer journey model, whichever the way, but we now know that when you want to begin crafting this plan of yours, or in your case, Christian, when you want to think about what is the team, what is the skill set I need to have, I think we need to remember that when I reflect on the work that I do, we rarely begin by opening the laptop. We rarely begin on our own, just trying to work it out. It's far too important. Time and time again, successful companies and teams, they begin this business of crafting the sales and marketing funnel with what we perhaps have been missing a lot of: conversations. Those conversations are chaotic to a point, everybody's talking over each other. People are passionately excited, but you need to be in a conversation mode. You cannot do this just by opening your laptop. Nobody's come up with a good marketing campaign just on their own. It just doesn't exist. It's not possible, unless, of course, you're doing it in a way that it doesn't merit the support of others. But that would be very, very rare. So conversations are very important. So in fact, what I'm doing today is showing you how you can facilitate and stimulate a conversation between you, your colleagues, your peers or suppliers, Digital City, and more. Very, very important. So this conversation is structured, and it's not there to stifle your creativity, far from it, because it will be then fueled by your passion, and the details would come from your understanding of your customers, their needs, their wants, and so on. But the structure, to me, is very, very important. And the structure is not perhaps what you've heard or from the books you can sometimes read. The structure is not terms like SEO, social media, email marketing, websites, and more. A structure is actually born out of your customer's journey, from someone who a moment ago didn't know you existed to someone who thinks that you are a worthy consideration in this noisy, busy marketplace. And what we do for ourselves, really, for that structure, we split the customer journey in terms of making a decision to deal with you, into 3 key elements. So at the top, you've got the ideal customer. At the bottom, you've got them acting. So sometime would be an inquiry, or they might be able to purchase directly from you. And the 3 stages are as follows: visibility, credibility, and interactivity. And these are words that I've come up with to simplify matters. If you're interested, this is a combination of the McKinsey customer journey, and of course the work that I did in my younger days at One Northeast when it comes to the skill journey as well. And therefore, the conversation that you need to be having, all of you, and by extension, the team you've got to build and the kind of experience you've got to build, is around conversations around how do we increase our visibility via the internet. Conversation number 2, how do we increase our credibility via the internet? And question number 3, how do we increase our interactivity and giving ourselves access to our customers via the internet? These are the 3 conversations. And yes, once you start to look at the details, words like social media may appear, but they shouldn't be really at the heart of your conversation. Now, having revealed to you the 3 stages, what I'm going to do is go straight into giving the details of each of those conversations and also give you some tactics that I think can make a big difference. But there are 3 different stages of understanding and appreciation from your customer's perspective. Visibility is very different to credibility and is very different to interactivity. Just very quickly, because I think it's important, when you currently work on creating information and that information is published on your website, on your social media, on your email newsletter and so on, when you actually create information on your platforms, as we call them, you are working on your credibility. And I would suggest to you that, having observed and supported businesses now for many, many years indeed, that is pretty much what people do with their sales and marketing campaigns online. I think there's an element of misinformation. So let's be frank, the industry as a whole has not been very, very clear about how to do this, but also just some misunderstanding about what it takes for a customer to believe in you and trust you. To be visible, if I go back to the previous one, to be visible, it means that I, as a customer, discover your information on platforms that I'm using already, on a website that I'm visiting already, on a Facebook page I'm visiting already, because it's not yours at this moment in time. I don't know you exist. And some of you will know that the infamous algorithm, or algorithmics, as Anton Deg will call them, will get in the way anyway. So to be discovered is a bit harder nowadays, not impossible. So I'm thinking, on your behalf, Tasha, if you want to be visible, you create information, an article, a podcast, a video, but it needs to be on someone else's website, my website, Lindsay's website. That's visibility. The moment it goes on your website, you're working on your credibility, which is important, but it's not sufficient to really drive sales and drive a level of inquiry that you'd be happy with. That's really quite important. And granted, life would be so much easier if we were in 2005, but we're not. So we have to deal with the times that we live in. Okay, so very, very quickly then, for me, looking into the near future, all of you will be in a position to summarize what you're going to do for your visibility, your credibility and interactivity, simply in plain English. I sense the irony of a French guy saying that to you, but it should be no more than 2 sides of A4. Literally, because the details is more in the execution. But all of you will be in a position to quickly summarize what you're going to do across those 3 stages, 2 sides of A4 max, because the simplicity is going to be to your advantage. All right, so I'll leave you with this statement, and I'm going to move on to the explanations of each stage, which is, for me, if I had to conclude after many, many years of wrestling with this question of how do I increase and grow my business via the internet, it's pretty much down to that, which is the quickest way to build trust online is for you as individuals and as businesses, excuse me, to be seen and heard being helpful. If you want to write it down, we want to post it on the fridge door or on the whiteboard in the office, that is at the heart of what you do. So the conversation you're going to have with your colleagues and your peers and more should be driven by this ambition to be seen and heard being helpful. And as a result of which, for me, as a prospective customer, you want me to kind of reflect on what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've watched, and you want me to have this reaction, which I know is going to be very ambitious, but it's an important one. Based on what I've seen and based on what I've heard, I look forward to meeting those people. And I know it's ambitious, but what would you not want to have somebody with that desire and wish to meet you face-to-face or via Zoom call or whichever, because the hints that they got from your article, from your video, the hints that they've got to your approach to customer care is something that they want to experience too. That's at the heart of what we do when we market ourselves, which is why there's some strong hint of customer service. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here for a short while, if you don't mind, Lindsay, just to kind of ask some reaction. And they can be just as simple as a thumbs up, or you can chat, or you can put your microphone on. Is that plausible as a structure to begin with? That's what I'm asking for now, because of course, we need to go in the details, but is it plausible that we have 3 stages, but we must work on our visibility And that visibility is with our information being carried by others who currently have the attention of our customers, because we just don't have it. And we will not have it by simply posting more on our website. That's a bit of a misinformation that is still carrying on the internet.
For me, Pascal, I think it's a really interesting. Hannah and I actually had a great session yesterday. Hannah might not think so. Looking at some of the work that we do for a particular sector. And one of the things that I was thinking about while you were talking about was what that is a really complex idea, and there's a lot of information there. And I was wondering, in those sort of 3 phases, where can you start putting some of that detail in? Or do you just try and keep it as simple as possible all the way through?
So yes, you keep it simple all the way through. You accept that you have 3 different conversations. It could even be at 3 different times or 3 different meetings. Conversation number 1 is your visibility. And now that I've told you that you have to work with others, the question that you need to ask and the answer you need to get is, who are the others? Who are we talking about? And it can simply begin with the other suppliers that are already working with your, with your customers. So case in point, for me, it's easier if I may relate. I specialize in upskilling individuals and teams, but I don't execute. So if I wanted to be discovered by new customers, then I should be looking to form a partnership with web design agency. And that web design agency would carry an article where I may demystify something to do with social media, then share it onto their network, and I become visible to their audience. And then the next step is credibility and interactivity. So to begin with, it's about this idea of, I said the others, and we'll discuss where they are. So the supplier network is an important one, Lindsay. And then the other thing that you can look into, and in fact, I'm spending longer on that on the session on the 19th, we'll talk about the customer insights, but about behavior. So right now, where do they go for news and advice? That's an important question to know. You can write it down, all of you, hint. Next question you could be asking yourself is, do they attend conferences, virtual and in person? Do they go to webinars and workshops? I would suggest they do. Then knowing what that is will give you an in. The one that I think I favor the most is your customers. Do they belong to a membership organization? Do they belong to a trade body? Do they belong to a Facebook group? Do you want to keep it, very, very sociable? Knowing what that kind of group and grouping is important to you, because you can have an in. You approach the the membership organizers, who, by the way, on Monday morning had a meeting, Lindsay, saying, what are we going to put on our Facebook page? They don't know. And you come along and say, well, actually, I enjoy answering those questions, or I enjoy looking into this. Would you want some of my content on your Facebook page? And this logic of working with others arcs back to before the internet. And some of you who are of a more advanced age, like perhaps myself, we call this public relations. And something has happened, I don't know when, Lindsay, I'm going to say 2010-ish, where all of us, because we could have a laptop and we could have a mobile phone, we kind of took away this impression that we could do everything ourselves. And we're just waking up from that.
Yeah, no, that's useful, because that's exactly what we were discussing yesterday. But I think it's that, keep it simple all the way through. I think one of the things that we can fall foul of is trying to put in some detail too early, and then it confuses people, or it puts people off, or it's not necessarily encouraging that interactivity bit.
No, I would agree. So for me, visibility, and I'm just inspired by Chris and his question, it's about this power networker, so an individual or group of individuals that join the dots in the world of, so they know where the groups are, they know where the influences are, and so on. And they make a very, very simple approach of, I have time, I have a passion, and I am happy to share that with you in form of words, in form of spoken words podcast, in form of spoken words and images, video. And you are doing, therefore, your job as the person or the team in charge of visibility. And then you pass on to the people or the teams in charge of credibility, which I agree with maybe the same individuals, but you don't do everything at the same time.
Okay.
Super. All right. So, well, I'm just conscious of time. So what I'll do then is I'll move on quickly to explain a bit more about how it works. So the 3 big actions, what I mean by big is that it's going to feel ambitious, it's going to feel very daring, and importantly, it's going to probably be not done by many individuals and businesses in your sectors. So let's start with the visibility, by far the most important element, because if you can't be discovered, then nothing else much will happen. So for me, there are 4 ways in which you can work with others for you to discover and explore. And again, Lindsay, I'm happy to give more examples later on. So the first thing is you could piggyback, if you don't mind the term, their own direct marketing efforts. So an organization, an individual who currently has the attention of your audience in a good way, has an email newsletter maybe, and maybe they still do print media, which is still going very strong. Don't neglect that. And you are featured. I was helping a gentleman who has an app, can help schools communicate via the internet in a more private network, because the likes of WhatsApp and Facebook don't comply with data protection. And he had everything you would want in terms of the digital marketing pack, but didn't have visibility. And he discovered a person who is a consultant in the business of data protection. That consultant had a newsletter, and I will give you, Trent, it was an awful newsletter, poorly designed, really wordy. I mean, it was a horror. But nonetheless, he had a little advert. Oh, I discovered this app that can help you communicate, privately via the internet. And overnight, he got himself 10 customers, 10 schools subscribing to the app. I spotted him in the newsletter that is bloody awful that was received, and so I think that's also back to that, which is, it's right there in front of you. Just need to reconnect the dots again. The other thing that I hope will, because that's so enjoyable, is what I coined guest marketing. Can you be a guest at a next conference, virtual or face-to-face? Can you be a guest on a podcast? Can you be a guest on a blog? Can you be a guest on a video series? Of course you can. You just need to, once again, give it some thoughts and do that. And don't be too modest. Every day, every second of the day, there are people out there wondering what on earth they're going to say and do next with their content, and you are the solution as their guest. The next thing you can do, a term that I'm not very fond of, but it is used, so I'm sharing with you, social selling, asking for introductions. As simple as that. LinkedIn is very good for that, but there would be other ways. If you know an individual or even an organization that currently is connected with someone that you want to talk to or to invite and so on, then ask politely for that introduction. By the way, as a reminder, you would do this at a networking event face-to-face. Just because we are behind a keyboard doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing it. And then, of course, all the others, all those platforms may have some options for you to do PR or advertising, and you should certainly consider it. It's part and parcel of what you can do. So these are the 4, for me, strongest and most attractive proposition when it comes to visibility. There are others you could choose from, but if you do those 4 and do them fully, I think you should be very, very happy with the results. Now, granted, some of you may say to me, forgive me, Pascal, but all you're doing is just repeating some labels that people are using out there. How does it manifest itself? What does it look like? So what I want to say to you is, when you do visibility as a tactic, as a campaign, what you're doing is, in effect, showing a quality that your customers are going to really respect and really kind of like from you. This idea of you being curious. So what we do for visibility, because we want to work with others, a bit of humility, but also, being quite curious. What you're going to do is step one, you're going to launch an investigation. So you're going to adopt a theme, you're going to adopt a topic, maybe a key questions, and you're going to research what is already out there in terms of content. So against that question that you have in mind, maybe against that challenge that your customers are facing, you can research podcast episodes, you're going to research videos, you're going to research ebooks, you're going to research infographics, articles. things that are already out there, things that are potentially already in your inbox. You just need to, and once you discover an item of content that to you is good, positive, informative, inspiring, you're going to share it via social media. I suspect it could also be part of other efforts, making sure that you name and tag the author of that content. So if we take an example, for example, of financial management, and that could be your investigation, and how do you maybe deal with the changes in financial management regulations, then you're curious yourself about it. You may know some of it, but not all. You launch the investigation, you share the information, you tag the authors of that podcast, that video, that infographic, and then what will happen is some of them will get back to you. So let's say, for argument's sake, I spotted something that Kerry had shared. It's right from our audience. I then share it back on. I write a few words to thank Kerry, but also to explain why I think this video is particularly important. And then Kerry might get back in touch, say, "Oh, thanks very much for sharing the content." And when people get back in touch with you, this is where you move on to step number 2. I'll come back to that. And step number 2 is to say to them, "You're more than welcome. Your video, your article, your podcast, your infographic, your ebook was brilliant. In fact, I have more questions for you. Would you consider joining me on my new video series where I explore the benefits of, the impact of, or the importance of?" And the person that maybe a moment ago you curated information from becomes your guest on your own video series. And you've got a number of options to consider. You could invite them for what I call an expert Q&A, where they answer more questions about the article or they expand upon the advice they gave on the podcast. You could ask them to join you for what I call a news roundup. So the content you shared was more that they were giving people an update about the changes that are of importance to their audience. Maybe very much what I would do, you spotted a new product or a new bit of software that is really, really exciting for you, and you want the inventors, the developers, and so on to give you and your audience more of a tool. Sometimes I call it the technology tracker as well, depending on which industry you're in. Now, why is this important? How does that comply with my visibility kind of tactic? Once you've had this amazing conversation, by the way, with those individuals, and it is published on the internet, and you send a lovely thank you email to your guest, what will they do next? They will share the video to their network, saying, "I was a lovely guest. I had an amazing chat with Kerry, and go check it out. It's on the website." And your guest also then therefore becomes your champion, driving traffic to your website. But you've kind of had that lovely collaboration going on. So 2 steps for this tactic on visibility, which is essentially guest marketing, but on its head a bit. You launch an investigation on behalf of your future customers and current customer for that matter, for the month of October, let's say, as an example. You want to understand something better. You're curious about a challenge, a question, a trend. You curate and share what's already out there. Obviously, you read and watch and listen to everything. You don't want to be sharing things that are not right for you. The authors that get back in touch to say thank you and then invited to a chat, a conversation, to expand upon the very article, the very podcast or video you've shared. As a result of which, they will drive traffic to your website. And more importantly for you, you're being seen and heard, being helpful. So we're back to that as well. Okay, I'll stop here for visibility, Lindsay, and take any questions or reaction before we move on to credibility and interactivity.
I'd just like to say thank you. I find that really interesting about visibility, because I think if you look at our website and social media, I quite like looking at it. I think I've got some nice posts and some good pictures, and this is really interesting, I think, because it's been quite an issue for us. And I have started tagging other people and trying to do that a little bit, but not as you've said to do it. And I think at the Hawke Foundation we've got a kind of different problem in that we're not going to find our customers online, because a lot of the people we actually get in centre have no digital skills. So they're not going to be on Facebook, they're not going to be on LinkedIn. So we've been using LinkedIn more to try and connect with businesses who might refer, or other organisations, voluntary sector organisations, whereas the people then who do use the centre might sign up to Facebook, and we can keep them on there. So our content across the different platforms is quite different as well. But I think this is really interesting for me, this visibility. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I love, what you're saying really is that you're building a network of champions and referrers who in conversation with others are going to say, have you heard of? And then you fill the blank. So it could be the Hope Foundation, it could be Chris's business, it could be Kerry's, and so on. And I think all of us, I don't know whether, do you still believe, all of you, that word of mouth is important and will continue to be important for your organizations? And therefore, all we need to do is support those who support us by creating content, by inviting them to showcase, their knowledge and so on, and creating a sense of belonging, which that people have been longing for meaningful human interaction. And I know that I get inquiries from conversations people have had about me. But then the beauty is, when they check you out, forgive me to use that term, but that's what people do when they go online and they see you in conversation with others, perhaps even the people that they know. What is that going to do to their belief in you and the trust?
And it's certainly from some of the work we do a lot about Q&As. Hannah does a lot of Q&As, particularly with our the businesses that we're supporting just starting up in their early days. And we find that, and we discussed a case yesterday where we'd done a Q&A and a bit of a case study about this new startup business in one of our newsletters, and we shared it on our social media channels. And as a result of that business got 4 new clients. And it was just because there was an understanding that that business had been through one of our programs and they were really interested in the product that they had, but they would have never reached that client without it going through our channels. And I just love some of the innovations around when you see people taking over other people's socials, and you just get in that slightly different voice and different version, and it gives that organization or that business the opportunity to communicate with a different audience.
No, super. And so therefore what you've done is you've taken the initiative and you've applied the guest marketing kind of technique and on their behalf, and that's worked well. So for all of you, so yes, it is direct. So the others, will support you, and therefore the conversations you need to be having, and you need to get some feedback on. Number one, every month you need to launch an investigation. So what subject, challenge, topic, trend, do you want to be seen to be curious about? And you might need to have a few up your sleeve, and then literally it begins with a routine of curating, sharing, and giving the rightful people a shout out. And then for those who get back in touch, not all, because as I'm sure you've discovered, people may have a LinkedIn profile, but they're not always on LinkedIn. But those who say, oh, thank you very much for that, Lindsay, then you move into step 2, which is no problem at all. In fact, you're in luck. I've got this video series starting very soon. I'd love to ask you more questions about the article. So it's very important you remain, the context is retained. So it's not just a random conversation, it's a conversation about the very article, podcast, video that you've already praised. A bit of heart and mind, does go a long way. And that's very, very important. Now, quick question before I move on to credibility. Why do I say video? Because people will have always a bit of time to chat about their favorite subject. Much harder, but you may have people who are different, much harder to have somebody to write 2,000-word essay about what they're passionate about. But also video can be transformed into a podcast only. Video can be transcribed. You can do extract. There can be all sort of things you can do. So if, I was chatting to you about the Hope Foundation, 45 minutes goes by very, very quickly when you're talking. That could give me extract of 5 minutes galore. That could give me infographics. I could do so much with it. So yes, I am a big fan of video and video production, but there's a reason for that. And the repurposing is quite significant when you use video. And it's really quite something. Okay, sadly, time is against me, so I need to move on to credibility. This one you are very familiar with because that's what you've been doing all the time. We just added one event just before. So no surprise there. As part of your kind of credibility pack, if you will, your website, your social media accounts, your YouTube channel, because you're going to have something, and your entry on Google Maps or Google My Business. These are the 4 that I would concentrate on. I'm asked a question very often about social media. A few number of platforms is better than to have lots of them. You know that. And therefore, we kind of clear with that. These are, again, the channels, but what do you do with it? So once you've kind of published your promotional content, as we call it, so you've published what you do. You've already put together a Meet the Team page. You've got the About section. You've got the, how to get in touch. You've got all that kind of business transactional related content, and you can tweak and improve upon it. But how do we keep it going? How do we keep it alive? So beyond the marketing content, you've got to also start to introduce something whereby the quality that you want to showcase is to be useful. You can't help but be helpful and useful to others. And the website, the social media, the Google My Business, and YouTube is just a clear example that that's the case. So what I would encourage you is to have conversations and, again, support each other by creating in advance a richer schedule or richer agenda or a richer content plan, depending on the term that you favor. And I'm going to show you a system that I kind of invented again to support small business owners and small teams, called the 4 M's. So the first M I mentioned a moment ago is marketing content. This one will come to you pretty much immediately because it is about showcasing what you do, who you do it for, and so on. But if that's all you have on your social media, on your website, on YouTube and Google My Business, you're going to quickly run out of things to say. And more importantly, it's not going to be enough for your customers who discovered you a moment ago to really get excited about working with you. So what we're going to need to do is introduce the 3 other M's of mentor, messenger, and merchant. And it's just little labels to help me explain something to you. So we've got marketing, we've got mentor, we've got messenger and merchant, and these are the 4 M's. Now, mentor content would be articles, would be videos, could be podcasts. You understand that it's multimedia, it's your decision, where you are seen and heard being helpful by answering questions that are important to me. And to be clear, these are not questions about returns policies and how to do business with you. These are questions that can help me understand something better as a potential customer, and on occasion take action. And I hear the tension sometimes, well, if I explain everything to my future customer, they won't get in touch. And I can assure you that for the last 20 years, there's been no evidence of people never going to a restaurant just because they got a cookery book at Christmas. So I think we can just let that one go. I want you to be seen, to be helpful, so that in advance I can imagine, wow, well, if that's how helpful Chris and his colleagues are before I even get in touch, God knows what's going to happen when I do get into it. It's going to be a fireworks. So as a mentor type content, you need to be seen to be answering 3 types of questions. And there's no big secret there. The how questions, very popular. The what questions and the why. These are usually where you can go. And I'll show you some tools in a moment where you can get a little nudge in remembering what those questions are. My recommendation would be, each time you are in conversation with others and you find yourself actually being helpful and answering questions, very quickly write them down or have a colleague with you to write them down, because these are the very questions that you should be answering. It's almost like, if you go to a networking event or if you're with me today, answer one of your questions and the reaction should be, oh, what a shame. What about all the others who have missed out on me answering the questions? And your website, your social media, your YouTube and Google My Business becomes almost a platform where you have captured and recorded the questions that you answer all the time. So it's almost like a reverse engineer of FAQs. Messenger, I'm a big fan, but probably because of the work that I do, whereby you bring to the fore news and updates that are of importance to your customers. It's almost like the ultimate journalist. And the three things that you need to be looking at, which I think is good fun, is before, now, and soon. So as a messenger, what you could do is play to nostalgia and talk to your customers about what we used to do before. And in my line of work, people absolutely love it. I mean, I mentioned to you a moment ago that we celebrated 30 years of internet. On my podcast, we did a big retrospective of Sir Clive Sinclair and his life. Nostalgia is very, very powerful. And it's also one that has a lot of emotion. But for you, it shows that you're so passionate that you know the history of your industry. You understand where it's coming from. Of course, there will be some updates and important kind of news of what's happening now. And all of you should also be looking into the near future in your sector, in your industry, and the world of your customer. What is happening soon that's going to have an impact to your customers and your sector. So the before, now, and soon is something that we use as a bit of a workshop, and you could do it in yourselves. And finally, the merchant is about products and sometimes other things that would be a lovely complement to what you do. So let's be clear, the merchant is not you selling your stuff. That's the marketing bit. The merchant is because you've come across something that would be very helpful to your customers. And it could be a digital product. In my case, it usually is. It could be a physical item, or it could be a new technique or a new process that you've discovered. And that could be part of also the curation from what you do on visibility. So once you use the 4 M's and the details I've given you, you end up with something really quite exciting, and also for you, something you can look forward to. And you avoid the situation whereby you sat there on the Monday morning. If you still do the Monday morning team meetings, don't. Monday mornings, I can't get started myself, So, but if you have that meeting with the team, you kind of go, right, what we're going to do about content, at least now you have a structure. I think it's going to be very, very helpful, and you can start to delegate. So very, very quickly, what I thought we'd do, Lindsay, is show an example of how you can manifest that practically. So if we use a month, and typically there are 4 weeks in a month, I've checked several times, and I'm right in that. And what you can do in advance using a whiteboard, the post-its and so on, you can start to commit a particular type of content per week. So you could say week 1, we're going to do the messenger type, and we have the choice. It could be a before, it could be a soon, it could be a now. On a week 3, I'll be answering questions that month, and on a week 4, I'll do a showcasing of a discovery, something that is making life easier, which means that week 2 and week 4, I can do the marketing bit, but I also can be a bit more precise. Marketing is vague. It's wonderful practice and discipline, if you ask me, but as a term, it's a bit vague. So in week 2, I'm going to do more of a service or product update. Let me remind you what we do, but maybe how we've slightly adapted or adjusted our services. It's a bit more elegant way than just saying, this is what we do, who wants one? And in week 4, we might even do a case study or testimonial or something that still relates to what we do. And because, of course, you have lots of imagination, you could have some extras you can fit in during that busy month. Maybe you want to do a live demonstration of your service. So you want to run through a recent project and give me some more details that can inform me. But that in itself, if you imagine that could be social media, that could be the website and more, becomes more interesting for you as the person to execute or the team to execute.
Hi, is it just me, or has Pascal gone quiet?
Yeah, I think we might have.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Oh, no.
But I think he was going to do a comfort break, wasn't he, at 11?
Yes, it was. Shall we all take the comfort break now, if that's okay with everyone, and come back in 3 or 4 minutes once we've managed to get that cup of tea or whatever we need? Is that okay?
That's lovely. Do we all stay connected and just?
Yeah, just stay connected. Turn your video off if you wish, not so we don't hear you making your cup of tea or whatever. But yeah, just stay connected, and hopefully he will be back. It's really unusual to get these challenges on Zoom, but hopefully he'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we can restart from there.
Not a problem.
Thanks everyone. Hi, Pascal. Glad you're back. We've just
Good.
gone for a quick comfort
Yeah,
break. It's almost
know.
11 o'clock.
So I hope I wasn't talking to myself for too long when it happened.
We were, you were just on the breakdown of what the schedule could look like. Yeah, so hopefully not.
In all the
Wonder
years
what
of using
kids do.
Zoom, it's never happened. I'm so sorry, ladies.
Don't worry.
So we just said we'll have a few minute comfort break while you get them back online.
It's really frustrating. I mean, yeah, I'm annoyed because it's not much fun for the attendees, but also I just don't know why it's happening.
Yeah.
I wonder if Zoom has done an update of sort, and because I've checked my my speed and it's through the roof, you know, because I've got everything working.
Came at a good time.
Yeah, no, I mean, funny enough, I was saying, right, I've still had to say, let's go for the break, and I thought nobody's moving,
No one's talking.
nobody's talking to me, and then boom, I went.
Oh well, we probably missed the last minute or two, which you were just still talking through the extra elements that you can add in.
I think he's froze again, Lindsay. Oh no, he's still there.
Still there. You're gonna have to keep moving, Pascal, so we don't have a heart attack.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm concentrating on the. Well, I suppose it was bound to happen at some stage, but.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome back. We found him.
Hi. Got a fresh cup of tea, so it was all fine.
Hi, Kerry. Welcome back. Chris. Shall we make a start then, Pascal, if that's all right?
So approaches everybody, you know, one of those moments with Zoom. So we got to the point where I was talking about the Richard schedule and how you can choose, you know, to organize your week accordingly. So I'm going to get some question moment, but my advice would be, you know, obviously I've given you the labels. You can put some more details in there in terms of what kind of news, which questions, which product or so you want to share as a merchant. I would say have an overview of the next 3 months. So for us today, it could be that if you apply this from today, you've got October, November, December, more or less mapped out in terms of generally, this is the direction of travel. And then what I would do is only focus on the next 4 weeks and have the details in there. And I suppose, you know, to kind of react to the question about social media, this is, of course, the scheduled post that, you know, you want to put in. That would be in addition to the curated content they're going to be using as part of visibility. And also you're going to be reacting and interacting with the others. So in terms of social media, this is only one facet, but I think an important one where hopefully you're going to find that to be helpful in coming up with new ideas, you know, all of the time. So once again, I wanted to kind of pose there and get your reaction about credibility. So we've got the website, we've got social media, we've got YouTube, and we've got Google My Business. They need to be fed in all those platforms with content. And sometimes just to have a system, once again, that stimulates conversation can be helpful. And the system is one that I've invented over the years called the 4 M's. Marketing content, yeah, absolutely. Messenger, mentor, and merchant, just to stimulate your imagination. So yeah, if you have any further questions or reactions to that, I'd be more than happy to hear them.
That was very useful. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Pascal, those 4 on credibility, I could have guessed 3. I think the one that wouldn't have automatically come up for me was the Google Maps bit. Why do you include that one? What do you think that really gives?
Yeah, so Google My Business was 2 things. You will always be listed, and if someone wants to check you out, you know, let's say yesterday I was at a networking event, or I was on a Zoom networking event, and your business, Lindsay, is mentioned to me, and I'm interested, maybe it matches what I need, then I'm going to punch in your business name, even your name as an individual, and your entry on Google My Business will be listed alongside maybe your website, your LinkedIn profile, your now what do they do? Actually your Twitter as well. You've got all those things going on. And Google My Business is almost like a mini website. You can copy and paste all your articles from the website to be featured alongside that. You can put some pictures, you can put some videos, you could put details about your services, but more importantly, it is part of the long-term plan for Google to transform Google Maps into a social network. Because some of you may be wondering, that this is the one thing that Google hasn't tackled yet, because they've got everything else covered in business. And it is their plan for Google Maps to literally be switched on at some stage and become a social network like Facebook and Twitter and the others. You might as well be ready for that and create a community that is organized around your entry on Google Maps, because yours is, once again, content rich. So everything that I've mentioned here, your thinking is about the social media and the website. Simply spend some time to literally copy and paste everything over Google My Business, just to get yourself into the habit of running it in future as a social network.
Pascal, sorry. Pascal, I was going to ask that. We have, or I deal with clients who are very international, and their actual physical location isn't relevant. So when you make a Google Maps thing, it's very much related to where you are. And I think that actually it's not going to work for them, because they've got a little office in Teesside, but all their businesses in the US and America, and the actual location can actually be a disadvantage for them.
Yeah, so you've got two avenues. You don't bother with the Google My Business strategy and make the other three work harder, just to complement the gap. Or, as I've done with other exporters, we find a way to have a virtual office near the location of their chosen market. So I was helping somebody, export into Eastern Europe, and we found at a very, very low cost, an office in Poland, and they were able, therefore, to populate that and let people know that headquarters are in Teesside, but we have a second office, very much like me as I'm talking to you, with second office in France. So that's the two ways. But if Google My Business is out, then the other three just need to work a bit harder. Super. Right. So what we'll do then is I'll move on to interactivity. Once again, this one thing will be familiar to you, but we're going to clarify a few things. And then once we've done that, I'll move on to the second half, really, which is the idea of the online tools and apps you should know about and explore for yourselves. So interactivity is fascinating to me, because it is the one that people have hesitated for quite some time to do. And if there is, anything in terms of observing the behavior the last two years now, it is one that people now are happily doing. And I think it's because this idea of enjoying interacting with others and hearing their voices, seeing their faces, and actually from that point of view, always feeling a little better ourselves. So very, very quickly, it's this idea of the quality that we want to showcase. So with visibility, the quality, be curious. With credibility, be useful. With this idea of interactivity, I want to be using the tools of the time, such as email marketing, such as in future for some of us meetups, perhaps more formal structured briefing sessions, but most likely webinars and live video being the social media kind of effort, webinars being perhaps what we've done today. So these are the 5 that kind of work well for me. And there's some subsets and some close cousins, but typically that's what you'll be doing. For the context of today, I'll be focusing on the email marketing webinars and live videos, because they are all more or less of the same. And the reason why there is interactivity in your funnel, and the reason why it's going to work for your business, is back to context and logic. And the logic of a webinar, the logic of a live video, the logic of email marketing is to give people a chance to ask you more questions about content that you have published recently. So it's really important that there is that fine journey of Lindsay discovers what I do because of I was a guest on a podcast that she listens to. Then Lindsay goes on my website and discovers content structured around the 4 M's. Some of that content is interesting, but on the website or on social media or more, there is an invitation to attend a live session so that I can expand on the content that Lindsay has been consulting on the website. So there's a thread through. It is really important to use that technique. It's better for you and it's better for the customer as well. So when people say to me, I think I should do a webinar, but what on earth do I talk about? I say, well, just expand on the thing that you published on Facebook yesterday. I would love to do a live session on LinkedIn, but what on earth am I going to talk about? I say, well, what about all the posts that you've been publishing on LinkedIn for the last month? Why don't you just do a session just to recap and just to discuss and react and invite? So there's that logic that I think is very, very important. Now, there will be some form of webinar which are directly linked to marketing. So there is a page where you showcase your product and services. And yes, there's a webinar to essentially expand on the product to convert. But not everyone visiting your website, not every customer is ready to buy just yet. So what do we do to continue this journey of trust and so on? Well, we expand on the other M's, the mentor, the merchant, and the messenger. So that's the kind of logic behind it. And the quality, therefore, is that you're present. And I think, to me, that's where I need to go back to my moan about automation. I understand, and I really have sympathy for this desire to sell things without talking to anybody and retire early. I have some, understanding of that. But for most sectors and for most industries, that's not quite what happens. I mean, some of us, for example, in my case, I have to hear the requirement. I've got to present a proposal, this back and forth and so on. It doesn't quite work this, but more importantly, this idea of posting and then disappearing and just reappearing again once you have something else to say is not really where we want to be from a customer journey point of view. All right, so the activity really, the tactic is very simple to me. You've got to commit and put the date and the time in the diary. And it's going to be as simple as that. Yeah, we can discuss in a moment which platform you may choose to do so. But for me, what I need is for you to say, all right, allowing preparation time, minimum once a month, once a fortnight would be better, but once a month, this is when I'm going to invite people to attend a webinar, a live session, or receive an email marketing newsletter, which is kind of the more passive way of doing this, where I'm going to invite them to this ultimate recap on all the learning and all the discoveries and all the news that we've been going through, just in case they missed it, but also because some of them maybe got enthused or they got inspired and they want to ask me more questions. That's kind of the logic behind it. And when asked, using Lindsay's kind of preferred word today, simplicity, this is what we should be working. Very simple webinars or very simple live sessions, whichever term you prefer, done very often and very well. And the very well is not about the complexity of the production. The very well is how you behave as a host and how you make me feel welcome and how you make me feel that the effort is for my benefit, as opposed to some contrived event where ultimately all you want to do is flog your stuff, if I may be so blunt. So back to the idea behind. So can you, in 2022, commit in advance, maybe 3 months in advance, and put the date in the diary about when I will be invited to attend those sessions or when we'll be invited to receive this well-crafted email newsletter? Now, very often, people say to me, I mean, I'm happy with the kind of the Zoom call with colleagues, and I'm happy with going online but complete strangers, I'm not sure. I said, that's fair. That's very fair, kind of doing a session with people that you've not met before and done so. So perhaps what you should do is begin with a conversation with people that you know already. So the first few that you're going to do maybe should be a VIP. So you only invite people that you know to attend those sessions. So you kind of understand how it all works, and you break things as I've done today, that you kind of understand what goes on. And if I may, let me give you a quick structure. What I would do is create this as more of an open Q&A. So once again, you invite people that know you already. That's easier. And then in future, be people that don't know you just yet. And you're going to say to them, once a month, celebrate all the hard work and everything we put online and so on. we're going to do an open Q&A, and during that session, I will, organize myself into quick 5-minute segments, and then I'll get your questions. I'm going to take the question of the week. So the one question that was asked on Facebook that got people really talking, I'm going to revisit that for myself. I'm going to also look at the news of the week that got people really interested and engaged. And I will remind you about the tool, the technique, or the process of the week. And you can change those terms. So 2 things, you know them already. It is content that you've already shared and got reaction from. You know it's working anyway, and you're just getting comfortable in this business of hosting those sessions. Do 2 or 3 of those, and then you can open to a wider network, and you just continue to do the same. So I thought that would be a helpful one to do for yourself. But in any case, it's either a follow-on from the marketing content, or it's the merchant, or it's a messenger, or it's the mentor. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's all designed to give you that flow and that structure, and to be informed by the many conversations you've had, that week and that month. So that's interactivity. So once again, as we've done so far, I'll pause for a moment just to get some reactions, some questions. And then once we've done so, I'll move on to the tools and the apps that you should be investigating for yourselves.
Pascal, there was a couple of bits there maybe a bit vague, and you've probably done that for a reason. You've said done very often and done very well.
Yeah.
What are the sort of key tips that make it, how often is very often, and what are the tips for making it welcome?
Okay, so I would say monthly is a minimum. Fortnightly would be better, but I'm aware that people have got a very, very busy diary. So that's, the frequency. In terms of very well, it begins with the logic. So why are you doing it? And it's back to this idea of the extension of the content that I've spoken about. And in terms of the very well, to begin with, it could be what we call the staging. So if you look at my little kind of video window, and you'll see what I've done in terms of staging, or Lindsay's for that matter, in terms of the branding and so on. So the staging is an important part. Then you've got the sound. So where possible, use a microphone, not the laptop microphone, because it's going to give your voice just that slight distortion, and it may pick up actually noise that people don't need to hear necessarily. And then it's the structure. Think of it as a TV program or radio program. They have a structure. And once you have a structure, what you can do is welcome people, and it, tell them when to tell them when you told them. Yeah, we've all been there in that amazing management course to talk about team leadership and so on. So because you have a structure, and you can tell them what you're going to tell them in advance, that's going to calm your nerves if you have any, and then just go. We told them there's going to be the question of the week, so you go on that, and then the news of the week and so on. But you've got to stick to time. I know it's hard, by the way, when you talk about your favorite subject. I'm guilty of that. But if you say we're going to spend 5 minutes, that's call to an hour, and then you have a call to an hour to ask me your questions and so on, then that's your half-hour session, and then you can wrap it up and go. And by the way, of course, Lindsay and all of you, that would be recorded to become content on your website, on your social media, and so on and so forth. And then if you want to play it, if, for example, the news of the week was an article that you curated, you could also have a guest speaker flying in, just talking for a few minutes about their article that you so happen to have curated. Say bye to everybody, and they will also share that video for you. So that's what I mean by well done. It's very simple. I mean, literally just launch a go live on Facebook using their platform or solution I'm going to do. It's that structure, it's that staging, and it's that sound, and the 3 things that you need to be looking at. Super. So what I'll do then is move on to the apps. You've had the break already. So what I've done, and it was a request from Lindsay and the team, was put together a list of solutions and apps that you should explore for yourselves. But please understand, I don't expect you to be using all of them. That wouldn't be very wise necessarily. And what is important for me is you craft and build this content toolkit to support you as much as creating amazing information for your audience. And I sometimes think of the content toolkit as what I call your content nudging team. So if you found an app or a solution that you enjoy using, then by default, you will also enjoy content creation. If you are using a platform or a tool that is not quite right for you, then this will become a chore. This will become something that is just in a kind of, there's too much friction there and we need to get rid of. So on purpose, I'm giving you lots of options to choose from, but you must eventually go, this is my toolkit. It's almost as personal as being, forgive me, a contractor or an architect or something like this, and for some of you in the room that may be team leaders, you also need to consider that, as part of your team members. People may favor software A to do video editing, but someone else may favor software B. And we have to kind of consider whether we should allow that amount of flexibility. I certainly would recommend you do. So I'll begin with probably the number one option, and some of you will know it. And that is, in terms of creating more and getting that nudge in the right direction, we'll begin with Canva. So just as a show of hand, or give me a thumbs up, who knows canva.com and who is a big fan? Yes, we've got a few people there. So for me, Canva is really, really changed my line of work as a trainer, because I can find ways to get people excited about doing content for the web after the years and years of trying different ways. What I will say for all of you, even if this is new, be very, very curious about what you can do on Canva, because we all have a little habits and we all have a little templates, but monthly they are creating new features and new ways of doing interesting content, to the point where I've got some pals who are thinking, well, this is going to put me out of business. And I think to a point, no, because you still need, ultimately, there's a point where you need that professional eye and design skill. But for something that belongs to very disposable content, or just the head of a blog and so on, you can do that. I mean, you can do some pretty amazing thing, including when it comes to video, which is I was mentioning to you. That is quite incredible. You can now start to do some very fast editing on a Canva. They also have some very interesting templates. So I think I've got an example for you to show you very, very quickly, which is in and around, I was doing some test on Twitter, who had launched their audio live streaming services called Spaces. And as everybody else, I wanted to let people know about it. I wanted to put together a graphic to say, hey, don't forget tomorrow, myself and Roger, we're going to be online. And just by being a bit more curious, I discovered that you could do something looking and sounding, hopefully a little like this on Twitter. So it began life as a graphic. That's what comes to mind immediately. But actually, when I delved into the details of the template, I could do something that has more animation, which hopefully will work for you. So I sent this to my co-host saying, what do you think, would that work? And he went, oh my God, you must have spent half a day doing this. I said, no, I spent 5 minutes. The text that you saw was already in the LinkedIn post. I just copied and pasted, and then just, change that to an MP4. And you could also add your own video footage. You could use their video footage. You could even record yourself. So in fact, if I'd had a good hair day, I could have just not done the graphics and just spoken through with the text animation and the music. So Canva, yes, big fan, but be curious and go deep into the details. And that's true, I suppose, of all the platforms I'm about to mention to you. So I'll begin with the the copywriter or the post creator toolkit. A few options for you to go through. And again, you will get copy of the slides as a little manual. So don't feel you have to remember or note everything down. So we spoke about the mentor and answering questions. There's a platform, which is one of many, called Answer the Public. And Answer the Public is a search engine for the questions people ask on Google. They've been able to, legally and ethically get into the Google database. So put any keywords that relate to the subject matter you want to be seen to be exploring. I was lacking imagination, so I put website for this example on screen, and you just press search. You can choose language and so on, and you end up with a mind map of all the questions: what, when, which, where, how. So it could be a lovely, lovely nudge in the right direction again to come up or remember the question should be seen to be answering. And there's many other platforms, but this one is interesting. Now, some of you will know that YouTube is also an important source of information for individuals. In some countries, it is now the #1 search engine. So TubeBuddy can give you a hint into the question people ask on YouTube, which is what you need to get inspiration for your own efforts. You could keep it simple. You could go on Google or YouTube and start typing the questions, and you will see the autocomplete details that you go through. If you scroll down at the bottom of the Google page, people also ask is a little feature at the bottom on the desktop, easier to spot, and this can be a source of inspiration. Again, a nudge in the right direction. I don't make mistakes when I write, but hey, we all need a bit of support. So Grammarly and Hemingway can be part and parcel of what you have to support you as copywriters. And again, it could be down to preference. The Grammarly and Hemingway encourage us to keep the language simple. So there's a limit to it, because sometimes as part of your article writing exercise, you want actually a language that is more flowery or more expanded upon. And Grammarly will always try and reduce that for you. But it's a nice bit of support for all of us. For graphics, Canva will help you a lot, and few others. But if you really, really want to do something a bit different, Beautiful.ai is an interesting one to investigate. So literally you put the text, or you may put the images, and it will suggest design styles. So whereas with Canva, you have to choose a template, this does it in reverse. Some of you may be familiar with the PowerPoint element, where they would sometimes give you suggestions about the slide layout. This is a bit like that as well. And all the solutions I'm presenting, they have a free trial, or they have a very low cost option of a few pounds or dollars a month. Another close one, some of you may have heard of, called Visme. This is more for people who need to do graphics to represent data or complex process and that kind of things. Again, options exist certainly on Canva and PowerPoint, but Visme can give you that little edge and make it look a bit more thought out and more care into it. And that could be used for the content of your webinar, as well as the header visuals of blogs and social media posts. If you need to show items or brand, some of you may need to do that, or to even put an idea to the team. I want you to know this platform called Placeit by Envato. And I won't do justice, but this idea of your brand or your images on mock-ups like mugs and bags and t-shirts and so on. And what would you want to do that? Well, sometimes it's because that's what you plan to do in the future and you want to test the market, but sometimes it's just fun to be able to have a photography that has your brand on it in a way that is quite elegant and so on, but worth knowing about as well to try and make something more of your visuals. Talking of visuals and starting to move into moving images, WordSwag is a very, very good iPhone-only app for now, whereby, you have an image, you want to put some text, but you want the text to come alive a bit more. And what you can do with WordSwag, and they've recently released a new version, which is even better, where you can start to style yourself, style your social media posts, your blog headers and more. And it just allows you to claim that space online where everything is becoming a little samey and monotone. Sadly, because of the work that I do, I will now spot photography and things done on Canva more than I should. So that's a different. Talking of moving, for the right circumstance, for the right sector, a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but Giphy.com, the website itself is very, very powerful. can allow you to do a number of things, including backdrops for your Zoom calls, but also animated short messages, which can be part and parcel of your visual language out there. But I think you should know about it. You're probably familiar with it from your social media activities. So that gives you a segue into the Video Creator Toolkit. And I'm going to talk first about pre-recorded content. Later on, I'll move on to the live and webinar section. So without hesitation, this is the #1 mobile phone app you should all have on your mobile phone, called Quik, without a C, because of course when it's an app you have to misspell the name. And this is done by the team behind GoPro, and Quik will give you access to copyright-free music, give you access to templates, you can add text and so on. So the situation could be that maybe you have some photography, maybe you have some video clips that you've taken over a number of days and weeks, and you can tell a story about maybe your product, maybe a story about the team. And it's really, really quite powerful. And if memory serves, I've got a quick promo video to show you just how powerful it is and why you should certainly have it on your mobile phone.
Introducing Quik, the fastest and easiest way to create awesome videos from your GoPro or smartphone footage automatically. Quik analyzes your footage to find great moments, adds beautiful transitions and effects, and syncs everything to the
Is Pascal frozen again?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh.
A few seconds for me.
Oh dear.
Maybe playing the videos a bit much for his connection today.
Maybe it looks like he's still there in terms of participants, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Let's give him a moment or two. There were certainly a few in that list that I've never heard of or tried.
Yeah,
What about you, Hannah? I can see you playing for hours on some of those.
I know I've been jotting them all down, but Canva is really good. That I use that quite often, but some of the others are interested in having a little look on them.
Yeah,
particularly that video that he was just playing for the video creation app.
Yeah, because that's certainly something that we find people are a bit camera shy. And then when you do a sort of your virtual Q&A, your Q&A session, and you record it, or you record a webinar like we have today, it's then the workload that's then involved to edit it down, to put it onto the YouTube channel or to put it into our community. And I think that can be quite daunting for a lot of businesses and a lot of small teams, because the Digital City team itself is really small. And we certainly find that, you know, the thought of having to edit some of this content down is quite overbearing at times and does put us off. But we do find that you know, the more and more content from a session like today, we can break it down into all sorts of different ways and use it as questions that you've come up with, and gives us a content that could last us a long time. So anything we can do to help reduce that editing is much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, are any of those tools that you guys use regularly?
We don't, well, we have professional quality things.
Yeah.
Because we've got designers, and so in a way we shy away from things they're packages where you can't do things up. But the downside is the stuff we use is incredibly difficult to learn and it takes a long time. So actually I'm very open to actually using, you know, off-the-shelf packages when you need to do simple things. I think we're actually a bit guilty of over-engineering a lot of stuff. And I think we would do more. And I would advise anybody to say, yeah, use the tools that are there. You know, it's some of these things will allow you to do things in seconds, which would take you, you know, half an hour, using a professional tool.
Yeah, I know that a lot of at Teesside Uni, we've recently become an Adobe Creative Campus. We've got access to all of the Adobe solutions for students to use them as part of their everyday work. And the idea is to help them get used to that sort of professional package. But I know that some of the lecturers are still finding that they're going to this sort of free or quick and easy tool that they're using for their own social media purposes for the coursework that they could have been using Adobe for.
Yeah, I mean, even it goes to building websites. Yes, you can build very sophisticated websites, but quite a few of our clients now, we use platform sites, sites, like Wix and Weebly, because they don't need things that are complicated, and they don't even need stuff which actually loads particularly quickly. So again, you can over-engineer things very often, and you need to decide on what is good value for what you're doing. I think actually we're all lacking people on our teams. So you have a lack of time. So you've got to take the fast option if you can.
I think if I can just, we're having our website rebranded at the moment. So we've got a designer who's doing that and doing all of the design work. But what she's done is sent me all the graphics, the icons, the backgrounds, which I've put on Canva, so that then I've got them and it's all on brand as well. And we've created templates that I just have to add some text to, and the designer's done that. But then we've got a really quick and easy solution that anybody can use and post.
Yeah, it's a great compromise. And I think that I think smart designers today will realize that self-created content is, and I think what Pascal said about this is like the old chip wrapper, isn't it? It's here today, gone tomorrow. And if you spend too much doing it, you're not going to get good value.
Yeah, and if it's onerous, you're not going to do it. So if it needs to be regular and good quality, it needs to be as unonerous as possible, if that's a word.
And I think that's another good thing that's come out of the pandemic. We're now much more used to seeing the news and all sorts of programs with people with Zoom backgrounds and, the quality, and therefore it's much more acceptable for a business to post something that they've made on one of these tools, and for it to be seen as a great way of communicating. Whereas a few years ago, people would have said, oh, there's no way I'm putting that on. It's not professional enough.
And we're all used to seeing ourselves on screen now.
Oh, I still hate it.
Oh, I hate it as well. And any videos I've done, I still can't watch back, but I've done them now.
Yeah, I always think I sound about 2. Anyway, Pascal, lovely to have you back. We were halfway through the video tool when you dropped out.
Yeah, hold of that. So thanks again for holding the fort. So the message about quick, and I'm making apologies. I'm a huge fan. And listen, this is from someone who ran a video production company for 5 years and is still to this day doing things in very, very complicated ways. So I think you're right, all of you, this message of, well, if we keep it simple, we'll get there quicker. It would be less of a chore. And it's back to this idea of this being part of your nudging team. Now, sometimes you'll need something a bit more where you have more control, because quick is more about AI taking over and making decisions for you. And usually they are pretty spot on. If you want more control, InShot, amongst many others, is definitely a brilliant addition to an app, for your phone as well. But that requires then some understanding of video editing and want to spend a bit more time on it. The one that you need to consider for all of you as part of your activities is, of course, recording your screen and recording your webcam to give some advice or to do a show and tell and all that kind of good mentor content type. So Screencastify, what a name, is one of many options. So you would use it to either actually for internal communication. So instead of sending long emails, you could say, well, this is how you do it, or this is what we're going to do. Or many people use it now to do webinar that they can record, or tutorials. You see them a lot. So it's one of many, and you can choose that one. But that allows you to create content away from just the mobile phone. If you want something whereby you don't have any content, you don't have the video footage or that kind of things, there's a company called Biteable. And what you do with them, it's a bit like, I suppose, Canva and all the others. You have video scenes and you have text, which you can overwrite, and therefore you can create a visual message. You can use stock video footage, or you can use also 2D and 3D animations to share your message. And you'll find they're very often used to explain maybe a process, to explain steps to go through, or to give announcement about an event and that kind of thing. So it's an option for you to consider, and I thought you should know it, that it exists as well. So for people who want to edit even more and get close enough to the pro editing techniques, then this is by far the best option, which I've kind of researched on behalf of my customers, is from a company called Wondershare, and they have Filmora 10 now, Filmora 10. And once again, as someone that comes from a video production background, oh my goodness, this is pretty impressive for the price. And again, all of you mentioned about speed of execution. I think that'd be a lovely one. And I've got some pals who are big fans of Adobe and all the things that come with it. And they say there are times when that's better for me because I can work much faster, and almost some of the decisions are taken off you. So if you're considering video editing, there's definitely one worth your consideration. So for anyone that is thinking about this idea of editing, particularly audio and video, moving forward and have that kind of multi-dimensional things, Descript or Descript, if you want to pronounce it the French way, is actually quite an interesting platform. New, so not everything is working perfectly, but imagine a situation where you have a video, maybe a podcast, and the audio, the words have been transcribed. And then what you can do then is go into that transcriptions and delete words in the process that will remove segments in your video and your audio. So the speed of execution on work like case studies or long form conversations is really quite something. So I have to say, worth your consideration as well. So I just wanted to kind of close on captioning and subtitling. It's important. I don't think it's just this business of, because people don't watch videos with the sound on social media. It's also good inclusivity and good manners, I would say, in the context of a global audience. So Subly, a UK company that, it's rare sometimes to talk about UK companies, they do the subtitling for you, but they've also introduced translation. So that's why I wanted to mention it today, Lindsay, which is this idea of you could have a video case study where the words, spoken words are in English, but you could actually have it captioned in German and so on and so forth. So I thought a good addition to our tour of apps and solutions for all of you today. I'm going to finish this Essentials tour with Podcast Creator Toolkit, because I think we all know, and the numbers are kind of very clear, that there's been a vast increase in audio consumption, and also podcasting can be listened to more freely than maybe videos. So in terms of recording, if it's just you, to begin with, you may have had the audio from your efforts, on the likes of Zoom or the platform, but Audacity is probably the go-to, a bit like Canva, if you will, for recording and editing audio. You can bring audio from a different source, but you can also record on Audacity. It's a free platform, lots of support, lots of tutorials on YouTube. You will get your head around it, very quickly. If you want to do things whereby you're not only are you recording, but you're also publishing across platforms like Spotify and more, Anchor.fm is probably a wonderful way to get started on podcasting. The desktop version, laptop version is brilliant. It has lots of different facilities. You can edit on the fly and literally press publish, and you will be listed on Spotify and many others as well. So Anchor.fm is worthy of your consideration for the podcasting bit. More advanced, again, a UK company is called Alitu. So Alitu will allow you to edit the podcast. It also uses AI to improve the sound quality, and you can drag and drop, the musical stings at the beginning and the end. You can put some segments and so on. And yeah, it's a wonderful addition as well to this list. Headliner, who's come across Headliner before? You may have seen some of it on social media. So this is a screenshot, but imagine that this image with a podcast from the wonderful Julie Andrews. I'm not going to start singing any of my favorite songs, but she has a podcast, Julie's Library, which talks about books. And what she can do is a teaser, maybe a 1-minute teaser, whereby this video would be played. You click on the play, you would hear her voice, you would read the captioning, and you can also see the sound waves, kind of scrolling from left to right, as you may have seen on social media. They call this an audiogram, and this is a wonderful way to promote content, particularly audio content, but also, let's say for argument's sake, you've written an article and it's got a long form article, and you want people to really give it, a fair chance, then what you could do is a 1-minute teaser where you explain to me the content of the article, you tell me about it, but guess what? You don't have to be on video, just in case you have a bad hair day. Just a nice graphic, maybe from Canva, some nice audio and the captioning, and off you go. So I thought it'd be worth you knowing about it as well. Now, I've been a guest on those platforms. I don't use them for my own efforts, but Zencaster, if you want to have a guest and to record the audio only, that's a nice one to know about. And a competitor, but I think it's worth you knowing about, called Squadcast. So what they offer you is almost like Zoom with no video whatsoever, but with hyper quality in terms of the audio. So they put all the effort on the AI and more on the audio quality. So these are for the pure podcasters. You will need to host the audio very much like you would host a video on YouTube or Vimeo. So Captivate.fm is once again a UK company. I always like to talk about the UK, not just the US sometimes. And Captivate is designed really to host your podcast, and has a very, very user-friendly dashboard to allow you to do all sorts of things from marketing to hosting the page and so on. Really worth your while, and they have lots of tutorials as well. You could also consider a more internationally known brand called Buzzsprout. So they do the same thing. That podcast of yours needs to be somewhere, and very much like you would with the video on YouTube, it goes up, you write some descriptions, you can tag it and so on. And then you can copy and paste the embed code to make sure that this podcast is on your website and listened to from your website. That would make sense to me. So the other thing that I wanted to mention to you is that I'm giving you a long list of options, but they are options. If you don't like them, because once again, it's about creating a personal toolkit, then this website is going to be great for you. It's called Alternative 2. And as the name may suggest, if, for example, you're not a big fan of Quick, or you're not sure about Headliner, just simply find the alternatives. And this is run by volunteers and people from around the world who says, well, I tried Headliner, I wasn't so keen, I found this instead, and I preferred it. So Alternative 2 is a wonderful thing to do. And if you know anybody who is an app developer, they need to find ways to be listed. That would make sense to me as well, and be part of their marketing. I want to kind of tell you about curation. We mentioned visibility, and I think in fairness, you will find a lot of it already in your inbox or already fed into your social media platforms, but you may want to take the initiative. So a range of options. And again, you can look at the alternatives. So I'll begin with Flipboard. So this is both a website and a mobile phone app that, based on your keywords and based on your interest, will present articles, videos, and podcasts against those subjects. You can see at the bottom of the screen, I've got my kind of keywords: Google, technology UK, film UK, marketing, internet marketing. So these are all the keywords. And whenever somebody publishes an article and those keywords are a match, it'll be presented to me by Flipboard. And it's just a nice way for me to save time in finding the good stuff to curate and share with you. A close cousin is Panda. So Panda means that you already know your go-to website for your curation, for your investigation, and you don't want to have to go through the trouble of maybe putting it into your bookmarks or into an Excel spreadsheet. So Panda can allow you to list them, and then they will show you the new content from those go-to websites. So worth looking into it as well. I used to use that one, but I don't anymore. I think I've gone to Flipboard 100%, but you should know about Content Gems. It works very much the same. Think of it as your virtual assistant, whereby using profiles and keywords, Content Gems will show you a list of the best content on social media, which I think is very, very important. They have two services, one where you go in and check the page, and one where they offer you daily email summaries. Do not go for the daily email summaries. Honestly, it's like the Apprentice Sorcerer. It just keeps coming every day, and it's just too overwhelming. So I would say having a diary when you want to check Content Gems or Flipboard, and do that, but don't subscribe to the email newsletter. So it's just too much. Here's a little hidden gem in the interweb. Talk2Books. So if you want to be seen to have read lots of books, maybe you don't have the time, but more importantly, jesting apart, if you want to quote paragraphs from books, or if you want to add to your blogging, to your activities and so on, this is a Google service that people don't know about, whereby you can put a keyword and it would list for you the books the page, the paragraphs, and so on for citation, where you can essentially add to your content, or simply say to people, here's a paragraph from this great book I've just read, and this is where you can find it. So it's just a nice way as well to add interest to your curation and to your content creation by extension. We need a lot more photography than ever before. Have you noticed that? So you will need support. So platforms like Unsplash and many, many others out there, Canva is one of them, of course, Pexel and so on. But the more options you have, the better. And what I will say is, whenever you search for photography and you look for something that, don't go for page one, because I can guarantee everybody's gone for page one. So they will know the photography. I even saw photography from Pexels on national TV here. And I was like, you can't do that. So I will always go to page 3, 4, 5, and you know that you're safe. No one's used those yet. Platforms like Shopify also have their kind of version of copyright-free photography, Burst. So that's a fun one, free for commercial use as well, which is lovely on their part. So I suppose my hint to you would be, if you are using a named platform like Shopify and WordPress and so on, just be curious. They may have already for you an arrangement or an agreement with photographers, and you can have some lovely photography for your content curation and creation. In terms of curation, to be different and to allow people to be surprised, SlideShare. Have you come across SlideShare before? Think of it as YouTube for the world of public speaking and workshops. So these are presentation on PowerPoint or Keynote, and they are shared freely for others to use. And you can link to them, you can embed them into your blog post, you can do all sorts of things as you would with YouTube. Of course, YouTube. So I was thinking as well about, by extension, sorry, I'm changing subject there, about sound for the podcast, and you may want some music for your videos for that matter and your podcast. So 2 platforms I can recommend: Dig, CC Mixter, which is all copyright-free music, sometimes just musical, sometimes there's also voice singing. And it's great. I mean, you will find something in there that you like, and you can search using keywords as well. But don't forget, YouTube have their own audio library. There's hundreds of options there that you can choose from. If you already have a YouTube channel, you have access to the, if not, just do a Google search, a YouTube official audio library, and you'll find it for yourself. But back to projects and so on, Mixkit. So this is maybe a bit more advanced, but I thought it was only fair that you should know about it. So this is a website where all the big brands from Adobe and a few others got together and felt generous and are giving away for free video clips, music, sound effects, templates, and so on. There's a limit to what's there, but it's a lovely way to get started before you maybe go into a subscription model for the likes of Envato or Video Hive. So Mixkit is a lovely one as well. We spoke about podcasting. Well, of course, I think you should be curating podcast, and they are listed on so many different platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts now, Stitcher, Pocket Casting, they're all there. So it's back to preference. But what I'm looking for is obviously conversations about the subject that I want to be seen to be curious about, and the platform that can allow me to embed, and it looks quite elegant, or I can share. So, have a think about how you might do that as well. I share a lot of stats. I think my line of work, it's a fun one to do. So all of you should have your go-to destination for stats. Now, this is the one for me, may not work for you, but it's called Statista. And they do countless bit of data crunching on the business of being on the internet, about consumer behavior and so on and so forth. And for all of you, you should know which website will work better for you. Sometimes it could be the university, sometimes it could be a trade body or the government. But what I like about it, it gives me, graphics, and it gives me everything. So my time is saved. I mean, within milliseconds, I can put this onto PowerPoint, into a blog post, and more. And I think it's an important part of who you are, what you do, to have access to data. Now, all those websites, again, they're known to me, they're used by my customers, but it's such a personal thing. You may want something different. So here's another option. SimilarWeb.com is a fun one to use. So if you come across a website, actually you like it as much as maybe you want something a bit different. If you use SimilarWeb.com, what you can do is put the URL, and as the name may suggest, it will give you a list of similar websites. So you want to move away from Pexels, you want to maybe add to your GoToNews website. So I've got znet.com, which I use a lot. But what else is out there that perhaps I'm not aware of? SimilarWeb.com can allow you to, do different things. And in fact, that's a little hint for the session on the 19th, when we do customer profiling and we want to understand what else are our customers looking at beyond just the bit that we know. SimilarWeb can also help you out with that. So I wanted to then finish, if you don't mind, Lindsay. I think I've got enough time to connect to the connecting more and going live and doing webinars. So the list will be known to you, but just in case. So if you are a Mac user like me, in addition to going live directly onto the platforms, you could also use something called Ecamm Live. And the reason why you may want to use a platform as opposed to directly onto the social media network is because you can do just a bit more, such as adding graphics, sharing screens in an easier way. You can do lower thirds, you can drag and drop video clips, images, and so on. So you're almost running a full-on TV show just from those platforms. And the price is very, very fair as well. You have a free trial, then you have a monthly fee. If you are not a Mac user, the other option could be StreamYard, which I believe is reasonably well known, as becoming more well known. And I've been a guest on StreamYard. It's also absolutely brilliant. So you go live on social media using StreamYard. Another one, which I've not done a screenshot of it, is called Restream. So stream, but Restream. StreamYard and Restream allow you to go live on more than one platform. So you could be live on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, and so on. And that way you have more of an exposure. But they are there really to help you execute in a more kind of branded and elegant way. And of course, you could keep it super simple. Organize Zoom meetings. Another one you could look into is Click Meeting as well, which interestingly was more famous than Zoom only 2 years ago, but we know what's happened to Zoom since then. But Click Meeting is a lovely way to do more demos and proper kind of marketing sessions and so on. So again, have a go and see what you make of it. For people who are thinking that webinar is going to be a big part of what they do for the interactivity and beyond, then you'll want something that is really giving you almost everything on the shopping list of running good webinars. The Webinar Jam, in addition to Demio, I would say, are probably the one worthy of your consideration. But again, if you're not sure, if you don't like them, use Alternative 2 or SimilarWeb and you'll find all the others. But I would say Webinar Jam means that you're almost doing them weekly, and it's just part of what you do. I wanted to close just on the connecting more with what's happening very, very soon. You've heard of Clubhouse, some of you, potentially? Yes, many of my customers wasting many hours. I told them not to, but anyway, what I will say about Clubhouse, it has given a kick of the day, as we say, where I come from, to the platform like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, to go ahead with their live audio streaming. So far we've been talking about being live using video, but as I mentioned a moment ago, Twitter, I've launched Spaces a few months ago. Facebook and LinkedIn are due to be launching audio rooms, as they call them, in October. So it's kind of now. We'll see there's some delays. And Spotify launched Green Rooms in the summer. So they're all going towards this idea of, as is the case with video, you can pre-record or you can go live. And the same is true of audio only. You can pre-record or you can go live. And as an experience for your audience, but also to increase your visibility, if you went live with a guest, that would be quite special, wouldn't it? They will promote their appearance on your live session to their network, making you more visible. Of course, you end up with a recording that ends up on your website. That's credibility. And then you're going to invite people to a webinar or to a live session where just you will expand upon the conversation you had with that guest, and that's your interactivity. So I thought that would be an important context to close on. And that's it. But I'm more than happy to take your questions. If you have other needs in terms of app and so on, there's more in my head, I'm sure, than there is on screen.
Wow, I think is all I can say to that one, Pascal. Yeah, I think there's such a fantastic toolkit out there, and as you say, it's making sure that that's not overwhelming. It's go and have a look and have a play and see what works for you and what's what you think might work, and and if it's not, put it in the bin and go and see if you can find one that does. It's fantastic. Anyone got anything in particular that they want to pull out, or any questions?
No, that was great. Thank you very much, Pascal. It's lots of stuff that I hadn't heard of, so that's brilliant.
That's quite all right. We all have a specialism, and for me, the pleasure in the sharing. So when we run the podcast with my co-host, and we've been running the podcast where we started during COVID, so last summer, and to date we have reviewed more than 250 apps, and it's just a pleasure, because not all of them are good necessarily, but I think it's back to the message I share with you, Chris, and all of you. Find your personal toolkit, find what works for you, and then stick at it and be the best at it. And where possible, avoid listening to the marketing of online marketing, where a new app comes along and you're given the impression you should be using it. If you've got the toolkit that works for you, just stick with that, and I'll see you through the next few years easily.
So going back to my original question, if you were going to recruit a graduate today, what discipline would you take them out of to make them into a great digital marketer?
I would reverse my reply by saying what would make me nervous, in terms of recruiting one person. If people join you and they don't understand public relations and networking, I'd be nervous.
Yeah, my inclination is that probably somebody with a PR or journalistic background is probably a stronger candidate than somebody with a technical background.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree, because the technical side, well, forgive me, people like Lindsay and her team can take care of that for you. Literally, like they'll take your graduate through a skills development program. What you can't do, or it's harder for an employer because time is against you, you can't spend the next 6, 12, 18 months trying to educate somebody about actually how we do business and human connections and the logic of, I give you a story that you'll all understand. I was interviewing somebody that comes from a retail background, which I think is also very interesting, retail, and how they've had to transform and change. And he was telling me about his best marketing campaign, the year where he broke all records of sales. And I was waiting to hear, like, well, what is it? Was it SEO? Was it social media? Did you do something clever on Twitter? And basically, he put an advert in a trade magazine. And that was like a slap in the face for me, because I was waiting for something like amazing. And what he was saying is, research told him that the buyers, both B2B and B2C, loved this magazine. And that was it. And he paid for the full page, and the sales went through the roof. And after that, there was the backup, the website, the this and the other. And it's back to that. So yes, we're going to use the internet, but we're going to use the internet because we understand the logic of exposure via others, which is why public relations and networking is essential to me, because then you execute using the tools of the time.
Excellent.
Chris, we can also have a conversation. There's a number of ways through the university that we can support small businesses like yourselves to get interns and placements, some of which are part funded, to help you find the right graduate and the right set of tools for your business. So we'll have a chat about that later as well. Fab, I'm very aware it's 12:05, guys, so we are slightly over. Please just get in touch, drop us an email. We'll send you the files and the tools that Pascal has very kindly offered to share with us all today. I would like to also say thank you so much, Pascal, for your energy, your enthusiasm, as well as the vast knowledge and hints and tips that you've shared with us today. I personally have come out with lots of things that I want to try and do. And I'm sure everybody else that's joined us today will be the same. So thank you very much, Pascal.
You're very welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. So thank you, Kerry, Sarah, Chris, Hannah, Tasha, and I'm missing Daniela as well. Thank you for your support today. It's appreciated.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
that was great, Pascal. Thank you so much.
No problem at
Yeah, it
all.
was
I am
brilliant.
absolutely horrified though them being kicked out of Zoom. I understand
Oh,
it.
don't worry.
Yeah, we managed to keep it going.
Yeah,
Use the break.
I mean, hence, even more of an argument for the co-hosting, because
Yeah.
people
No,
that should remain nameless but are in the business of international trading, they don't do co-hosting.
Mad. Absolutely
I mean,
bonkers.
I didn't know that, so literally when I was booked, I turned up, in advance as we've done today.
Yeah.
I'm waiting, nothing. And then people start to arrive. I'm like, oh, well, I suppose I should start, should I?
Yeah. Crumbs. Right, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to go.
That's all right.
I've got a group I'm supposed to be presenting to now. We'll give you a call. We'll drop some emails as we're getting feedback and
Super.
as we're circulating things through.
All right. So what I'll do is probably about tomorrow, I'll have everything in the online folder. I'll send you the link again, and you can share that with the people that came today.
Lovely.
And
All
I
right,
can
thanks for
share a
today.
copy of this recording as well. I'll just snip off the start and this
Yeah.
bit. Okay.
Thanks, Hannah.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.